The good old days. What was it that made them so special? We've heard the term time and again from our parents and from those who came before. Sometimes it seems we left that intangible explanation far behind when we marched full-blown and headstrong into a new era. The word that seems to sum it up more than any other is innocence. There was a naivete about life then that allowed us to experience delight in things not to be tolerated in the sophisticated world yet to come. The old Coronado campground, known across the country as Tent City, was just such a place, where the child inside everyone could find expression and where the sun could melt dream and reality into a never-to-be-forgotten joy. It's no coincidence that Coronado has been called again and again the Enchanted Isle. By 1899, the Hotel del Coronado had been owned for several years by San Francisco millionaire John D. Spreckels. Aside from the amenities provided within the confines of the hotel itself, guests could enjoy an enclosed plunge, which was opened in 1891. Located on the ocean side, just south of the hotel, it featured warm saltwater and freshwater swimming. Old Bruce Muirhead once recalled as a boy seeing an octopus and a guitarfish squirt through the pump and into the saltwater plunge, causing enormous panic among the bathers. Directly across from the plunge, on the bay side, sat the boathouse, which was built in 1887. And shortly after construction of the boathouse, a bathhouse was added to accommodate those hardy souls who wished to jump into the chilly waters of Glorieta Bay. According to old-timers, there was a net at the bottom of a large hole in the bathhouse floor, which prevented stingrays and other dreaded sea creatures from attacking the toes of the bathers. It was in this general area, in the year of 1899, that work began on an amusement and resort facility that was to cater to the summer crowd. Spreckels is credited with the concept of a tent city as an incentive for riders on his ferryboat and trolley line and the place to go on a day's outing. The idea was also promoted by Santa Fe Railroad officials who looked upon it as an attractive, if not adventurous, destination for their passengers coming out from the east. Campgrounds, or tent cities, were in fact not unknown on the Pacific coast. There was a thriving tent city, for example, on Catalina Island in the 1890s, and it was called the largest one-floor hotel in the world. By April 1900, carloads of dirt and gravel had been hauled in from the other side of Coronado Island. It had been leveled and graded until an area about 1 mile long and 600 yards wide between the bay and the ocean was ready to be developed. Mr. Andrew Swanfelt of the Los Angeles Tent and Awning Company arrived to take orders for building tent cottages, and by May, carloads of Swanfelt tents had arrived. The ultimate plan was for 500 tents with additional space available for those who wished to bring their own. The layout of Tent City included a main street with side streets and alleys branching off from it. Electricity was brought down from the hotel generator, and a sewer system provided plumbing to the community toilets. Trolley tracks were extended so that the familiar double-decker could travel from the ferry landing on past the Hotel Del to make its final stop at the new campground. And what a great trip that must have been. The motorman with his brilliant brass buttons on car number 41, clanging down Orange Avenue, the main street of Coronado. Officially, Tent City opened on Sunday, June 10th, 1900 at 3 p.m., and the San Diego City Guard Band held their opening concert in the center, or the plaza, as the new band pavilion was still under construction. The crowd that opening day exceeded all expectations. 1,000 people showed up. 55 tents were ready for occupancy, and a Mr. Robert H. Asher was the first San Diegan to register for one of them. The tents themselves rented for 50 cents a day. They could hold up to 7 people, so rates were based on the number of people in the tent and the location. They all consisted of just one room, with calico curtains used to divide off sleeping and dressing quarters. All the essentials were provided. A typical tent, in fact, would include an iron bed, bedding, a 3-legged washstand, a mirror, tables, chairs, a simple and uncovered electric light hanging from the ceiling, and of course cooking utensils. Daily maid and laundry services were part of the package. Most of the furniture was Hotel Del hand-me-downs. Gas stoves were available, and folding chairs and camp stools were always set out in front of the tents during the day for visiting and socializing. Drinking water was obtained from large wooden barrels spaced along the street into which 25-pound blocks of ice would be dropped from the ice truck every day. The cupola-top dance and band pavilion was finished 2 weeks after the official opening, and on Saturday night, June 30th, 1900, the first dance was held. Another of the early major structures was a 2-story building known as the Arcade. The Arcade offered a grocery store, an office, and a second-floor reading room. In fact, for the less adventurous, it also offered a few hotel-style rooms. Tent City aimed to cater solely to the best class of people, and those first courageous souls came from Pasadena, St. Paul, Denver, and even Deep River, Iowa. Among the treats they found were a bowling alley and a shooting gallery. The first Tent City 4th of July in 1900 brought a crowd over from San Diego estimated at 10,000 people. It would become, as it is to this day, the event of the year in Coronado. Fireworks were set off from a stand in the middle of Glorieta Bay to the delight of the populace who watched from shore or drifted in canoes and rowboats decorated with Japanese lanterns. And as they do today, the locals wondered if their island would sink under all that added weight. As that first summer crowd settled in, work on the resort progressed and the amenities were added. Construction of the children's pool began. Located on the bayside where the present-day City Hall now resides, it would cost $3,000 and take 2 years to complete. 100 feet long and 75 feet wide, it boasted a continuous flow of seawater, a slide, and it went from a few inches deep to 3 or 4 feet, so even the most timid bather could find relief from the heat. It would become affectionately known as Spreckles' Bathtub. The bathhouse, which had been attached to the boathouse, was removed, and it was placed on a barge actually located down the bayside near the pavilion. It had 70 changing rooms and cost 10 cents for admission. If, that is, you had your own bathing suit. It cost 25 cents if you had to rent one. With summer's end, the tents were taken down and stored, as they would be every September. And by the following June 1901, twice as many tents were ready for occupancy, and the reputation of the Coronado campground was still growing. The pavilion was remodeled to be 3 times its original size just to meet the demand. A small theater set on the ground floor and a restaurant with tuxedo-clad waiters served you lobster salad and a porterhouse steak. As you dined, the orchestra played a lovely Viennese waltz. Upstairs was the bandstand, shaped like a segment of a sphere. Concerts were free, and they were at 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. daily. By now, Tent City had its own official band. Spreckles would bring celebrated bandleader Henry Ohlmeyer over from Hawaii, and he would remain the bandleader until 1913 at Tent City. Selections ranged from Victor Herbert to the mildly classical. The band was always liberal with their encores. In order to promote Tent City that year of 1901, the Santa Fe Railroad provided the band with a special car for a tour of the Redlands, Riverside, and San Bernardino areas, and then announced a daily train for those cities directly to Coronado, which was known as the Coronado Flyer. By now there was a croquet ground and a merry-go-round. The merry-go-round was in fact moved from the Spreckles-owned Mission Cliff Park and later relocated to Balboa Park, where it stands today. There was a candy shed, which rather incongruously sold candy, popcorn, and fishing bait. And there was a bar. Although the management at Tent City allowed free enterprise, liquor selling privileges were reserved for the Hotel Del. And so, when the bar was put in at Tent City, it was owned and operated by the Hotel Del management. When someone imbibed a little too much, which by the way seems to have been the only real crime in Coronado in those days, there was a single police officer to take charge and escort the guilty party back to the ferry, and hence to San Diego. The officer knew everyone on the island. One of his chief duties was to patrol the band concerts and be sure that rowdyism did not prevail. If things got a bit noisy, he carried 2 printed cards which he would solemnly hand to the offender. One said, "Please be quiet." The other said, "Please keep your children quiet." The first religious service was conducted in July of 1901 by the Redlands, California YMCA cadets. Tent City was gaining a reputation as the place to be. By the next summer, one of Coronado's ferry boats had been tied up on the bayside opposite the main pavilion in Glorieta Bay, and it was used as a floating dance hall and casino. The Silvergate Ferry had performed its maiden run appropriately enough on April Fool's Day, 1888, and was the first boat on the west coast to have propellers instead of traditional side wheels. The slab-sided ferry boat was delightful to see crossing the bay, but hopeless to operate. Impossibly slow in answering her helm, she rammed the pilings on both the San Diego and Coronado sides repeatedly. Silvergate was removed from service very soon after and towed to Tent City, where she became the Silvergate Casino, moored on Glorieta Bay. Now, during the day, light lunches and drinks were served on board while her upper deck was used for a card and a clubroom. Every night there was dancing or a musical play, and it cost 10 cents to get on board. On Sundays, she was used for Sunday school sessions. In 1910, Silvergate was sold to the San Diego Yacht Club and began her new career as their headquarters until she broke up in 1920. Her remains could be seen as recently as 1990 in the mud off the old ferry landing, according to the late Joe Jessup.